We are episode 50, and today when this episode airs, I am 50. Not yet.
You're going to be traveling when you turn 50, n'est-ce pas?
No, I will be here.
You'll be here.
No, but you and I will be traveling. But I have not been this excited to do an episode in a long, long time. Not that I don't love all my guests, but I have Natalka Falcomer with me, the Chief Real Estate Officer of Houseful, formerly Ojo Canada, is now an RBC company.
Yes.
And an incredibly distinguished lawyer by trade. You sold your practice.
I did a few years ago.
Yes, and you have been named in the top 100 elite women real estate professionals. And I always say I am absolutely so honored when Natalka finds time in her busy day to sandwich out an hour or even half an hour to talk to me about work and business and the market. And so I could not be happier to announce that Natalka has agreed to be my official co-host on Leverage. I am so thrilled, so thrilled. So I welcome.
So first of all, I feel like I had to have paid you to say that. Pleasure is all mine. And simply because not only have I worked with Rachel to buy and sell homes, I actually exclusively refer Rachel to everybody that I know. And then also Max is pointing at me. So I will look at the right cameras. I swear I can do at least that.
One day we'll have Max on. You guys can all meet Max.
Yeah, exactly. So pleasure to be here. Really excited to talk to you about all sorts of things within the market, what we're seeing. In my role with Houseful right now, I get to really see a broad spectrum of how buyers are behaving across Canada. I know we're going to focus more so on the GTA. However, let's sprinkle in some fun nuggets so we can see what's happening across the spectrum. But pleasure is all mine. And I cannot wait to talk about the myriad of things. So go for it, Rachel.
I know, we have so many topics that we've, when we first got on a call, we were like, what are we going to talk about? And then even before this, I think we've been here for 2 hours just talking about everything. So there will not be a lack of topics for sure. But I'm so happy because the blend of what you bring, looking at the market from a brokerage level, which is brilliant and gives more of a cross-section than, let's say, for example, my boots on the ground in Toronto in the different areas. So, yeah, and I like that you have this whole across Canada because I can't fit in my day to even think about anything that's going on in the luxury market of Saskatoon, I think you said?
Yeah, we'll talk about that. It's going to be earth-shattering. Anyway, go ahead.
So we had the numbers come out yesterday, which couldn't have been more... couldn't be better timing. So we thought we would start our first episode off on what is going on in the market as we are what feels like the start, but also the calm before the storm of the spring market of 2024.
Yes. Where do you want to start? We could talk about seasonality, whether or not that's a thing anymore. Even before we dive in, there's something that is going to grace everybody's lips across Canada. You're going to hear it from government to realtors, which is affordability.
Yeah.
Okay, we know about this topic. It's not going away. And so the big question, and the thing that I think we should unpack today is the fact that we're hearing more buyers back in the market. So what does that mean? Does it mean that it's a more affordable market or not? What that means for the new first-time home buyer in, let's say, the GTA area, and how is it that people are managing this affordability issue? And what do we see happening going forward? I'm going to start with one quick little data point, not number heavy. In the 90s,
I got lots of numbers, don't worry.
56% of income, 56%, this was the height of the 90s when things were going crazy, right before that massive drop. People were spending 56% of their income on housing. Do you know what it is now?
Caveat, hold on, let's actually break that down. Because I remember when I bought my first house and my realtor said to me that there was a rule that 50% of your income, one person's income, not both your income, but when a couple was looking to buy a home, the recommendation was that one of their incomes, half of it, went to, can you imagine, that went to that mortgage. So was this, when you're talking
combined? Household.
Okay.
And that rule of thumb is, we could talk another time where it came from, because I actually know where it came from, that percentage, and it's pie in the sky idea. But nonetheless, now it's in the 60s. Okay, depends what market you're in across Canada, in the 60s. And that has sustained itself for more than just a few years like in the 90s. This continues to be the issue, which suggests to me that there's not going to be like you saw in the 90s, right. Boom, 40, 30% now back on it, like of income spent on housing. I don't see that happening. If you look at the charts, it's kind of like just like around here with a couple of dips like this, which reflects pricing that we're seeing as well. Everyone's saying, oh, did you hear big drops in pricing? Rachel, I want you to talk about that because that is almost comical when they say, housing prices dropped in the GTA by $1,000.
I want to take a deeper. No, I always want to start it off this way. And someone in media said to me, if you write for any news organization, if it bleeds, it leads, which is a horrible saying. But the reality is that more and more clickbait titles that you're seeing on your phone or online. So this was my caveat, even with the March numbers that just got released, where you're going to see that, sales were down, but prices were up, surprisingly. First of all, they were both flat. Okay. So the sales volume was down 5%, and it was year over year. So let's address that with your seasonality comment, which is, as I like to say in the olden days, there used to be a seasonality to our business. There still is to a certain extent. You still have, a little bit of a softening over long weekends. You definitely see it over the summer. Because the reality is we live in Canada and it's cold 8 months of the year. So people, listen, they'd rather be on a patio outside having a drink than looking for houses, unless you really have to move. But otherwise, doing this kind of year over year, like March last year is what we did, and drawing conclusions, bad or good, I think is a really old school way of the business doing it anymore, personally.
Yeah, so if I were a first-time home buyer, I'd be very wary of the headlines and then extrapolating those headlines and what's happening.
Shut down the noise.
Particularly in your neighborhood. For sure. Particularly in your neighborhood. If you want to take a look at, for example, the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board puts out a market watch, and they go down to even, and I invite anyone who really likes the data to go into that market watch, because you can go from like neighborhood to neighborhood and see like little price fluctuations. Some are doing this, some are going down. That could help guide you if you're looking for a particular market. Now remember, this is looking back a month. Things change materially week to week. In days. So don't let that also be the barometer for how you think about the housing market, suggesting, for example, that it's going to continue going down that particular trajectory.
Well, we were just talking about this, right? I mean, we literally just came off the worst market we've seen. Right. What did Benjamin Tal say? Something like 1992?
Yes.
I mean, the worst market. He coined it perfectly, which he always does, which was it was a buyer's market with no buyers. So I think that people thought, oh, the market was horrible. It wasn't horrible. No one was buying anything. It didn't matter how far you dropped your pricing. No one wanted to buy anything because they were so scared about what was to come. Right. And I truly believe the reason that sales are down, and by the way, 4.5%, like 4.5%, like it's almost it's a non-issue, is that people are still a little bit weary about whether, they are going to see interest rates drop, and also the affordability. So I'm only getting approved for this much. Maybe I wait a couple of months, but then will I get into bidding wars?
So what we're seeing, again, this is like my opinion only, not Houseful's opinion, but what I see in the GTA, generally how buyers act, is quite fascinating. They start looking in like the downtown core. So their search starts like GTA, because most first-time home buyers confuse list price with sale price, meaning that, oh, it's a $900,000 home.
Yes.
Oh, I definitely can afford the $900,000 home. It fits all my criteria. I'm going to offer on it. And then it turns out selling for 1.7, 1.8. So they start in the core, but where they actually end up buying is outside. So you're talking about like Pickering, you're talking about
I'm
like
gonna pull up my notes.
Even outside of Hamilton, you're talking like those type of neighborhoods is where they actually land as first-time home buyers for a variety of reasons. Of course, affordability being the biggest one. So I think that as all these buyers are now coming back into the market, they're now getting acclimated to the fact that that list price ain't going to be the sale price. I'm kind of used to. You said this as well. What your buyers are saying is, okay, I get it now. Like this is the market, this is the way it's going to be, this is how it's going to be, this is the affordability I'm going to have. What trade-offs can I make, right?
Yes,
And so
that's
now
a
they're
big
jumping
trend.
in.
That's a big trend, and we'll talk about that full circle. I think that we're seeing of first-time buyers for the last, at least what I've seen in the business for the last 10 years, say, I'm not going to be house poor. I want to be able to have the car that I want. I want to be able to travel.
Millennial generation.
I want to go out to dinner whenever I want. I want to buy what I want. And by the way, I'm not saying that people shouldn't, and I'm not telling what they should, but I can say that when I bought, like my generation, when we bought a house, when my parents' generation bought a house, we were all house poor. We did not go out I remember the very first year we bought our second house, we did not take vacation that year because we just took on a bigger mortgage. That was not happening. I'm making Natalka laugh, but that was not happening in the last 10 years. But we also for 3 or 4, we've actually experienced the lowest interest rates in, I don't want to quote decades, whatever it was. So we didn't have that. I think we got really spoiled. It took people time. But I do want to it's brilliant what you just said. So they start in the downtown core because that's their search. And of course, first of all, if I'm single, I'm young, I want to live downtown where I can walk out and, there's life versus maybe living in Brampton. There's nothing wrong with Brampton, but, So of the 2,900 homes, detached homes that were sold in March, 1,200 of them sold between 1 million and 1.5 million. Okay, and 400 more sold between 1.5 to 1,750. So if you think about the percentage, you're now seeing those first time, not even first time, but like those entry level prices for detached homes. You flip it over to the condos, and 60% of all the condos sold in March were between 500 and 699.
I have a question about that. I want to get your opinion on that because I am wondering who's actually buying the 500 to the 699. Are those investors? Are those young people who have not yet paired off? And the reason why I'm asking that is demographic really swings what people buy. This is what I mean. Boomers and millennials, same like sort of big demographic size. Okay. Boomers were known to be the ones that created Yorkville and the downtown resurgence.
And they still are.
And then when they paired off in their, let's say, late 20s, 30s, and had children, they did what my husband and I did. Geez, I think we need a backyard. They move out to suburbs, Etobicoke, Forest Hill, Rosedale, all those type of markets, right? And so
if
then you
only
saw
Forest Hill was a suburb.
I know. It was for a while. It is to me. I'm sorry, where is this place? It's far away. And so, anyway, the point being is they kind of moved out of the downtown core, which then caused the suburb markets to boom, the 90s crash, what have you. Millennials are doing the same thing. They're saying those homes that are like the condos downtown with 1 bedroom, 1.5, it's just not working for us anymore. We need to move out of that particular space and buy homes that are larger. The pricing that you just quoted right now suggests to me investors. Is that true, or is that just the Gen Zers now getting into the market?
I don't think it's investors. And again, this is jury of one, so there may be other realtors out there that specialize in investors that are seeing different things. I am seeing first-time buyers come back and say, I've got $600,000, $700,000 to spend. What can I get for it?
Okay, so singles, Gen Zers.
Single with a significant other that might be moving in with them, whatever that is. But I'm not seeing investors come back just yet. I think it's going, investors are very black and white. It's a numbers game. Right? So the rents are there, but the prices, like the interest rates aren't there yet. I think that's a little bit ways to come. But I think that going back to what we were saying about this full circle of this younger generation getting in, very similar. I had a client who was looking at a specific area in the city. His cousin was just recommended to me, wanted in there as well. And all of a sudden is now considering moving a little bit more east to get more than for what he wants because he doesn't want the shoebox based on his, based on that location.
Right.
I wasn't seeing that. during COVID. I wasn't seeing that recently. People wanted what they wanted.
Interesting. So Houseful has put out a survey. I think I flipped it over to you. It's also in Real Estate Magazine, in which they took a look at first-time home buyers and like what the trend happens to be with that demographic. And like some of it's like, it'll be obvious when I say it, but it's worth repeating. So people are now saying, I'm going to make some trade-offs. Either it's size, it's location. Like I have to make this budget work. So I just have to get on this train of home ownership. And something that you said that was kind of like making me laugh. I remember when a couple of years ago, I was saying to my mom, like, Mom, you don't understand how hard it is. Like everything's so much more expensive. And she's like, excuse me? When I bought my house, she's like, I did not eat a single meal out for like 10 years. I had the same pair of underwear for 25 years. And it's just like, okay, Mom. But like, I was laughing because it's kind of true. Like if you look at like 30, 40 years ago,
our parents had the same car for 20 years. Right. I mean, they weren't getting the brand new car. No. They were going on the vacation.
There's something to be said about that.
Driving to Florida.
Something to be said about that. And what I want to just round it out, this particular piece. So first-time home buyers are saying like, oh, geez, I guess I'm going to have to make some sort of sacrifice. And I don't want to totally sacrifice my lifestyle. So I'll still work within my budget, right? Rather than totally blowing the top.
Right.
Budget with, I think the idea, and you said this brilliantly, with the looking towards the eye of, I could lock in now, but it'll probably go down later. Yep. So I might as well go to the top of my budget because I know that I could save in a couple of years from now when interest rates will invariably go down.
Which was different than last year.
Very different.
Because people did not know where it was going to. I mean, I had clients who were like, well, what happens if it goes up to 10%? I'm like, I mean, I don't know. But like, it's can you imagine? Like that would just have astronomical effects. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. But people were really scared. Yes. And that's what we were both on that call with Benjamin Tell last week or the week before. And they overshot themselves in June and July. I've said this at per nauseum.
Bank of Canada.
Bank of Canada, thank you. And it was not necessary. And they should have already cut the rates, but the reality is they can't. We know that. The market is already heating up. If they were to cut it now, as I learned, I was today years old when I found out that Canada is the only country that uses mortgage debt in their inflation numbers. By the way, and commission percentage and rental prices.
Yeah.
Well, of course of course it's out of control.
And that's highly problematic, and not only how those numbers are reported, but also how it guides the Bank of Canada. Because if they're looking at CPI, which includes housing costs going up, they're saying, geez, we're saying to the public that we're going to reduce inflation, but it continues to go up. We can't just start cutting because it cuts around and doesn't make sense of the narrative of it's going up, therefore interest rates have to go up, and we're going to like bring inflation down. Like they'll have to give up on this notion of bringing inflation down, given the current way that we measure CPI, right? I totally agree with that. Yep. And like CPI is very interesting. We can even do a whole conversation about that, how they weight things in a variety of different ways.
I think people don't realize. I mean, truly.
But to Benjamin Tell's point about overshooting, something that I'm really paying a lot of attention to, and I don't know if everybody else is not necessarily bankruptcies in Canada. Yes, small businesses, there's tons that we're seeing like record highs, and I'm looking at whether or not those businesses will be repaying the debts that they were given, not bursaries, the grants that they were given by the government during the COVID period. They're coming due, like they're due now. And I don't know if many small businesses will be able to repay it because inflation's up, people are spending less. These businesses can't actually get people to actually buy their particular products and goods and services. What does that mean? They have to fold. What does that mean? Less people employed. What does that mean? Less people employed for the pressure on the market. Does that actually stimulate a larger recession? Questions out. I don't know. My point, though, what I'm looking at.
What do you think, though? I think there's a prediction there because I think, quite honestly, that a lot of people did it.
We just don't know it.
Well, they haven't announced it. Well, and it's really interesting.
Yes, because
it is very interesting.
In Canada, unlike other places, what we do is we sort of consolidate debt as opposed to go bankrupt, right? So what is called proposals, right? And what we're seeing is that proposals have increased to record highs. Now, granted, on a provincial basis, we only started recording these proposals, meaning like, I need to get rid of all my debt, help me somebody. I'm not going to declare bankruptcy.
Right. No, I'm going to consolidate and put me onto a plan. Yes.
So since 2007, which is when we started to record it on a provincial level, it has like skyrocketed to like 43%, something even higher than that.
But do you think that's just because it's
interest rates?
Okay.
It's interest rates.
No, for sure. And I think that people stretch themselves. I mean, who knows what the percentages of people that live beyond their means, there's no question. But if the government has created an easy way for you to consolidate your debt and put yourself in a payment plan and there's no penalty, why wouldn't you do it?
Yes.
So is it more that it's an attractive solution or that it's like, oh my God, I'm going to lose everything if I don't?
Oh my God.
Interesting.
And you're seeing the private lending space, a lot of knocks on doors to people to private lenders who are getting opportunities for second lenders on a property in which the person is consolidating their Visa, credit card debt, kicking off. Oh yeah.
Well, no. What was that condo development? One Bloor?
Oh yes.
I heard
Mizrahi?
that he was paying something like 23% on the second lender that he had.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
Yeah. Like it was, I mean, I think someone I know who would have known or would have been able to predict said that he was going to get kicked off that project, and he did. Yes. He did get kicked off the project.
Yes. So I'm just watching that as a larger trend as far as like, what does that actually mean for us as an economy? Now, what does it mean for the housing market? Are we going to see everybody selling their homes like we did in no. Because what they're doing is they're consolidating debt. They're not putting their homes up for sale.
But I also think, so one, because where are they going to go? Number two is I think that we still live in Canada that is very much a socialist society with lots of checks and balances, and the banks work very, very differently. Someone I play tennis with, her husband is a developer, and she said they have a whole bunch, just literally this morning was saying to me, there is a whole bunch of projects they have coming due. And yes, there were some defaults. Not a ton, but there were, and they had never seen it before. It is not something they've had to deal with before, but it wasn't a flood. It wasn't a majority. It was a literal sprinkle.
Yeah.
And I think that, and I'm not saying that there aren't challenges and there aren't people that get into trouble, but the reality is that there's always going to be people that make bad choices, and they're always going to see, money was free and they didn't look beyond 5 years.
Yes. Well, now that money is no longer free.
Well, and I was going to say, let's get back to the numbers and close it out, because I bet we could talk for like 2 days about stuff. One of the things that I noticed about the numbers, because you talked about getting, and that was, I think, where we fell in love with each other, was like the data and the numbers, and like we both geek out on all this stuff. So one of the things that I noticed when the market does soften, so condos and 905 are always the ones that get hit first, okay? So 416 homes are always going to hold their value. So, anything that is in the 416 in a good area, good school district, you buy well, you'll do well. Right. Fine. So not to say that 905 or condos are not a good buy, but they are the ones that fluctuate more. So condos are still in a balanced market, but it depends again. So if you're looking in like a CO1, so we in the business cut the city up and the areas up, and CO1 is basically like waterfront, lakeshore. So think massive congestion there. It's the only place I really saw like a 5-month inventory. And I bet that if I dug into that, it would very much be those 500 square feet, 600 square feet, either of investors or just people, who bought, and had a renter in for a couple of years and need to turn a profit or whatever it is. Otherwise, our trend is still that we're under 3 months worth of inventory, meaning we are lacking. I'm not going to tell you we're in a seller's market, because we're not, but based on those numbers, we still don't have enough housing.
But this is one thing that, yes, absolutely. And let's round it with a little bit of a point that I want to make. When we say we're in a balanced market, it doesn't mean it's an affordable market. Right?
No, it's just supply and demand.
Yeah.
So we're just talking about a supply and demand, because I think we came off of a frenzy of a seller's market for so long.
Right.
In fact, there was one really interesting point that I wanted to say, that one thing that I've noticed So we've started to see these offer nights come back here and there. I'm still, depends on the product. I'm not so on top of like going back full force, but I think if you really have a great product in a really like good neighborhood with no inventory, maybe.
Right.
2 products, both of them, well, one of them was luxury, one of them was an entry level. They both had multiple offers. In fact, the first one had bully offers and didn't even wait until the offer night. Both sold conditional.
Conditional though.
So conditional meaning when you had an offer night, it
This
would
did not
mean
happen
that,
several years ago.
no, sold conditional.
Yeah.
So I believe that sellers are willing to take that risk to get a better price.
And that risk being that it's still conditional on home
Financing.
home inspection, financing, et cetera, which you never used to see, like let's say 3-4 years ago, especially in hot products. It was like, as a seller, I'd say either it's totally clear, meaning you're buying it, no conditions, which gives me a really secure contract versus something being conditional, not totally secure that you actually sold. That's fascinating.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
It's the second one that I have been a part of that my clients didn't offer on, but the 2 properties were of interest to me for other reasons. And
Which is actually a good...
I would never, you know me, I would never tell a client to, in fact, back in the day, if you didn't have a deposit check
in hand.
But so that was one interesting thing. I don't think we're going to see it as a mainstay, but I believe that sellers are still very much stuck on price.
Yeah.
So again, going back to the price point going up slightly, money is not free. So we're not seeing pricing skyrocket, even though buyers are back. And I really believe that the numbers were down 4.5% in volume only because people are still trying to figure out what they want to do. And they're not rushing.
Right. And one, I just want to really just make this clear for people that are listening, because I find that whenever my mother loves to send me articles, market's down, people aren't selling. I'm like, no, Ma, this is actually like not a problem. This just basically means there's less activity. That doesn't necessarily mean that prices are crashing down, but rather sometimes if there's fewer sellers, what does that mean? Less supply, lots of buyers, prices go up, right?
Yep.
And so
they're just not going up as they used to.
Which is okay, but it still is unaffordable. And here's a good example. In Toronto and Vancouver, a property is considered luxury if it reaches $3 million. $3 million is considered luxury. Now, the most amount of market activity we saw in the luxury space was in Saskatoon. Do you know what that luxury price is in Saskatoon?
What can you get for $3 million?
Guess. $700,000 is luxury in Saskatoon.
Oh, sorry. So
That's considered luxury.
what can you get it for $700,000?
A luxury,
100
an
acres?
equivalent of a $3 million home in Toronto. So the point being,
By the way, $3 million. I hate to say this out loud, but I was saying this. $3 million doesn't even buy you very much anymore.
It doesn't.
For a 4-bedroom house in a good school district. I mean, I know that's crazy. Like when you think about what your mortgage payment is on a $2 million house, $2 million. We're not even in luxury now. So $2 million. What do people have to make in a salary to be able to afford it?
Exactly my point. So even if sales activity will be lower, even if prices go down by 0.05, 1.3%, it's still not affordable.
Exactly. And it's still a good market. It doesn't mean the market's not good.
Exactly.
Like that's the thing.
You're still selling for a nice premium if you live in Toronto and Vancouver.
Also, if you bought it 20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. If we could only. Any last minute pieces of advice for buyers and sellers out there?
Durham's making a comeback.
Yes.
Durham is making a comeback. Even Max laughed. But I was like, so there are two
Max
things.
like, what's Durham?
Yeah,
From
Durham.
Toronto.
Yeah,
Ew.
nice Jewish boy. He's like, what's Durham? So I would say.
Natalka thinks Forest Hill's a suburb, moron. Anyway.
So, no, I grew up there. I was like, I want to, although I did know someone who grew up in the suburbs and would not go south of Steeles. He was like, south of Steeles is the jungle. And I'm like, I think you need to stay like somewhere not in Toronto. Anyway, I digress. So I would say the two things I saw in the market was even so the East End, we all know, like Riverdale, and okay. So I don't think they could have been more immune to any market change for the last 10 years. Everybody wanted to be in, and truly because, first of all, they have the type of homes in that area that a first-time homer could get into, like not a condo, but you could actually get into a house in that area. And listen, it was hipster and there was cool places and all that great stuff. Fine. They felt it. They felt it in the last 6 months. Like they had high inventory, things weren't selling. In fact, I had a client who sent me a listing. They're going to put their house up in the fall, and he sent me a listing that sold and said, "It's nice to see things going over $500,000." And I'm like, they priced it low. It's not worth more. It's just, it's not back to, right? It's just that that's where the pricing was originally. They priced it really low. Anyway, I digress. The East End is back. So they are now back to like 1 month of inventory. They're semis, like that's in detached. Semis are like non-existent. So the East End is back, baby.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then Durham was like, no one wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole for the longest time. Like it was on fire during COVID. I had a couple sales out there. And then it was like, oh my, it was really, they were hit really, really hard. And primarily, I think because who would have thought of Durham because of COVID? And now they're also seeing like selling in like 14 days, 105% of asking.
What's driving that?
I think Durham's not what it used to be. It's like when you think about Oshawa, like it's all, we were talking about Caledon today. Like these places when we were growing up were so far away, forget Forest Hill. Like, you know, who would have lived out there? Caledon's 45-minute drive to Toronto. Even Oshawa in the worst market is an hour.
Yeah, okay? Toronto to Toronto's 45 minutes.
Ajax, Whitby,
like,
all have lovely communities, have great community centers, are built up. They have remember, think about those 3 things you look for in an investment. They have a university. I think, Oshawa has a college. They have a hospital. Like, they have the infrastructure. So where else are you going to go?
Well, I think it goes back to what first-time home buyers are doing right now. Yes, that's beautiful. But first-time home buyers, I think, are kind of saying, look, I want that backyard. Toronto's just not going to happen. I thought it was going to happen. Not going to happen. I got to expand out. Yeah. And so that coupled with, I think people are now wrapping their minds around the fact that they're just going to have to commute into the office 3 times a week, 2 times a week.
Traffic in Toronto. I think I'm showing my age. Like I don't want to go downtown anymore.
No, I don't either.
Saturday night, I'm good. I don't want to get in a car. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So then you say, okay, well, if I can get on a GO train or I'm going to drive, what's the difference?
Exactly.
And I have to go into an office. And as we know, there's still flexibility in office space. So I think that's what's driving it to go back.
So buy within your means. Buy close
always
buy close to a GO station or somewhere that can commute into the city, because I think that's always going to remain hot.
Or
highway. Yeah. And then also, you know, spring market might get hotter, so it might be better to get yourself in the market now versus a couple months from now.
No, I'm going to leave you with this. Don't try to beat the house. It always wins. If you need to move. Yeah. And just do the best that you can in that market. Otherwise, wait if it's not your time.
And with that, I suppose you have to now wait for our next session to talk about the market.
I was going to say, and with that, our first episode is in the books. Thank you so much.